You're ready or not? It's dark out, so it's time for that time of week where we do. You know, it is a luxury. Back in the olden times, ancient times, the Romans claimed that the Jews were lazy. The Jews were lazy because they did not work one day a week. Further proof of nobody wanted to be a Jew because they're all lazy. Because everybody who wants to earn their living would work every single day of the week. And guess what we learned in modern times? So the Soviet Union early on in the 20s tried to make a 7-day work week. And guess what they found? Not as efficient as a 6-day work week for human beings. It just wasn't. And so they gave up. The Soviet system gave up and they said, okay, you can have one day off. Oh, by the way, it probably will be Sunday, since you're used to that. So I always think of human beings go against what God has said to their own peril. We think we're smarter, but really not so smart sometimes. Having said that, Shabbat Shalom. So now you can, I've just allowed you to feel guilt-free for the next few minutes about, sitting here doing nothing. Isn't it nice? All right, let's see that what all the messages are in our, these are not emails any, these are not snail mail. What should we call them? I'll think of a good name. Papers. We have papers. Papers. The financial update is in green. I don't know if that's a subtle metaphor or not so subtle, and you can read about that probably later. Please realize that the blue boxes in the back are for what you can give. Just like your house, there's always fixes and repairs we need. So please keep mindful of that, and when you think about what God has given you over this Shabbat. Tomorrow morning, it says, excuse me. I'm looking at Saturday morning Shabbat service. Oh, this is worth an announcement. Tomorrow morning, the regular crowd for Shabbat morning services will meet here at the synagogue to travel to Tampa together for a free Marty Getz concert. A free Marty Getz concert. Is he speaking at a congregation? Is he? Over in Tampa? Shoresh? He's speaking at Shoresh, Debbie. Yeah. So be at the synagogue by 10. Do they have to wear like their tuxedos and ball gowns? Or
Yeah.
just go. Do you have one car going or several cars can go?
I mean, some of our cars can go. We would like to, come in and ride together if we can.
Okay.
Better for parking. So.
Okay, thank you. Good. Everybody hear that? That was interested? Mm-hmm. I like him and I hope he sings most of it. I like his music. His daughter.
Misha.
She's a very lovely girl. I'd rather hear him sing than her. I'm an old person. What do I know? Yes. The next one down underneath the sunshiny guy is John's and my dear friend, Boris. You wish you had a friend named Boris, don't you? Does anybody else have a friend named Boris? See, it's so cool. And we also have a friend named Igor. And you wish you had a friend named Igor, don't you? Because it's just cool. Natasha is not coming. However, I believe his wife is coming. I hope so. She is lovely. But anyway, Boris, our friend Boris, who was born in Ukraine, and he is the official leader within the union of, I think there's over 100 Russian-speaking Messianic synagogues, mainly in the United States, some in Ukraine, some in Russia, some in Germany. Anyway, Boris, he is going to be here Friday, March 13th, so it's not an unlucky day. And if you wanted to bring guests, that would be a good day to bring guests. Boris is a great, great guy. He has a lot of wisdom. He grew up during the time when the Soviet Union broke apart, and that's when Christian evangelists went into the broken walls of the Soviet Union and all its various places, and they evangelized and then they left, which meant any Jewish people that came to know the Lord during those evangelism events didn't get discipled. And they stood around and they went, I don't know what to do now because nobody is leading us. So guess what they did? They pouted and they cried and they whined. No. They decided that some of them would go off and get trained so that they could have their own groups. And now we're seeing that come to fruition. In other words, individuals in the former Soviet Union, Jewish individuals who accepted Yeshua and didn't know what to do. Now we're seeing congregations. So it's a very exciting time for us to be alive. And so hopefully he'll talk a little bit about that. That'd be nice. There's opportunities to serve there at the bottom of the page. There's opportunities to serve at the 80s Purim party. Connie's not here. I have to have you ask her if you want to participate, but Connie's a person to see if you want to participate in that. I guess I have to contact her because I'll be in any public event. You know me. All right. What else can I tell you? Everything's good. Don't forget that the weekly, basically the whole service, except for the prayer and sharing, goes out on the interwebs. If you have friends, relatives, people who are in other states, and you might want to let them hear the message of the evening especially, then feel free to go to Vimeo and you can send them that. And John and I, as we go home at holiday time, we do hear one or the other of our so-called relatives. Well, we share DNA with them, it's that kind of. And they go, oh, I listened to you a couple times. Interesting. So it does work and people do listen, and we never know who we're affecting. So that's I think, good outreach for the congregation. Well, are we all calmed down? Don't have to worry about wind in here so far. It's time to worship the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He's the one who causes the rain to fall, causes the wind to blow in its seasons. He's always on duty. He's always sustaining this world with his word and with his power. He is the one who will take care of us no matter in what circumstances we find ourselves in. Or maybe I should say, he will be with us no matter what circumstances we find ourselves in. It's good to know. Shabbat Shalom.
Just thought I'd share a couple more things about our friend Boris. He is involved not only with overseeing the Messianic synagogues in Ukraine, but also works with Russian-speaking Messianic synagogues around the world. And if I remember right, when I talked to him about that just a couple months ago, he said there are now something like 300 Russian-speaking Messianic synagogues around the world. So it'll be good to have him here. And we look forward to his presence with us. All right, having added that little tidbit, we begin our service this evening with Ma Tovu, pages 144 and 145. As I've said before, I will remind you yet again, this is a selection that is drawn from the book of Numbers, and it's when that rather interesting traveling prophet, the guy who was riding his donkey, saw the encampment of the people of Israel. He came to a reality which changed the very message that he was going to proclaim. He realized that God was actually present among this people. Ma Tovu reflects that. And so, as we join on those pages, as Jacob leads us, we need to remember that we get to enter into the presence of the God of the universe. He's present among us, so please make sure you experience that reality.
Yaakov, Mishkanotecha Israel, Ma tovu ישראל. ואני ברוך חסדך אבוא ביתך אשתך ואלהיך קדשך ביראתך ואני ברוך חסדך אבוא ביתך אשתך ואלהיך קדשך ביראתך. אדוני אהבתי מעון ביתך ומקום משכן כבודך ואני אשתחווה ואקרא עברך לפני אדוני עושי ואני תפילתי לך אדוני עת רצון אלוהים ברב חסדך הנני באמת אישתך. How goodly are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel. O Lord, through your abounding faithful love I come into your house. Reverently I worship you in your holy sanctuary. I love being in your house, the place where your glory resides. Here I bow down to worship you, my Lord and Maker. Accept my prayer, O Lord, and answer me with your great mercy and with your saving truth. Amen. How lovely are your tabernacles, O Lord of hosts. I long, yes, I pine for the courts of the Lord. My heart joyfully sings to the living God. One thing have I asked of the Lord that I will pursue, that I may live in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the graciousness of the Lord and to enter his sanctuary. Teach me your way, O Lord, and lead me in the right path. With you is the fountain of life. In your light do we see light.
In your light do we see light? Prompts us to focus our attention as we light the Shabbat lights this evening. Shabbat, of course, being God's guarantee that what the prophet Balaam noticed, we can experience because he promised he will go with us wherever we go. And Shabbat's the guarantee that he does exactly that.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Blessed art thou, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who has set us apart by your commandments and commanded us to light the candles for the Sabbath. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehoit oy l'goyim v'natan lanu Yeshua Mishpatim ha'olam. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who sanctified us by your commandments and commanded us to be a light for the nations and gave us Yeshua our Messiah, the light of the world. Shabbat Shalom.
Standing behind that guarantee, or actually, as we'll notice in just a minute, sitting behind that guarantee, is the one who is the light of the world. And so we respond to that one as we join in pages 40 and 41 for Elohim Asher. It's a fulfillment of a, how should I put it? It's not really, not vision in the specific sense, but it's what the rabbis envisioned would happen with the Messiah, who would sit, as Daniel 7 says, in a place of ultimate authority on one of the heavenly thrones.
האלוהים אשר דיבר מקדם פעמים רבות ובדרכים רבות אל האבות ביד הנביאים דיבר עלינו באחרית הימים האלה ביד בין אשר שם ליורש כל ובידו עשה את העולמים וזהר כבודו בצלם עצמותו ועושה כל בדברו רע הגבורה ולאחר שעשה טיהור חטאים ישב לימין הגדולה. In the past, God spoke to our fathers through the prophets and many times in various ways. But now, in the end of days, he has spoken to us by the Messiah, his Son, whom he appointed the heir of all things, and through whom he made the universe. The Son is the full radiance of God's glory, and the flawless manifestation of his reality. He sustains all things by his powerful word. After he made atonement for sins, he sat down in the place of authority, beside the majesty in heaven. True and firm, established and lasting, right and faithful, loved and treasured, desired and pleasant, feared and mighty, ordered and acceptable, good and beautiful is this word to us forever and ever.
He sits on one of those heavenly thrones, awaiting his return to culminate the Messianic age and, in fact, his mission. We anticipate that time as well as we respond with Ohr Chadash, pages 156 and 157, and it's partly part of our response and gratitude to our God for all that he does for us.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה ויעלמא דברך ירותי וימליך מלכותי ויצמח פורקני וגרב משיחי וחייכם נוב יומכם וחייכם בית ישראל העגלה ובזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמיה יתברך. יהי שמי רבה מברך, לעולם ולעולמיה יתברך. וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, יתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי קודשה בריחו. לעילה מנחו ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמא ויאמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים טובים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו ויעשה שלום עלינו Acho Yisrael v'yamru Amen. Glorified and sanctified be his great name in the world which is created according to his will. May he bring about the reign of his kingdom and cause his salvation to sprout. And bring near his Messiah in your lifetime and in your days and in the life of all the house of Israel speedily, yes, soon, and say, Amen. May his great name be blessed forever and forever eternally. Blessed and praised, glorified and exalted, extolled and honored, adored and lauded be the name of the Holy One. Blessed be he, who is high above, far above all blessings and hymns and praises and consolations which are spoken in the world. And say, Amen. May there be great peace from heaven and good life for us and for all Israel. And say, Amen. He who makes peace in the heavenly realms, may make peace for us and for all Israel. And say, Amen.
The throne room scene we have found ourselves in, we continue to find ourselves in as we respond with our Tehillah, the Brit Chadashah portion this evening. It's Revelation chapter 4, verses 2 to 11. It's pages 1536 and 1537 in your Pew Bibles, the one that looks like this, not the baby blue. And we've developed a custom here which we will in fact follow. I get the paragraphs that come all the way out to the edge of the margin. You get the paragraphs that are indented. So here we go. The text begins, Uk rega hayiti baruach, vehine kisei nir'ah vashamayim, ve'achad yoshev al ha-kisei. I was there in heaven. Before me stood a throne, and on the throne someone was sitting. The one sitting there gleamed like diamonds and rubies, and a rainbow shining like emerald encircled the throne. Surrounding the throne were 24 other thrones, and on the throne sat 24 elders. From the throne came forth lightnings, voices, and thunderings. Quick pause. You'll recognize that imagery perhaps from our parsha from last week, when the Torah, in fact, was provided for us, and God was accompanied by just that, lightnings and voices and thunderings. Anyhow, and before the throne were 7 flaming torches. In front of the throne was a sea of glass, clear as crystal. In the center, around the throne, were 4 living beings. I'm now on verse 8. Each of the 4 living beings had 6 wings, and day and night they never stopped saying,
Holy, holy, holy is Adonai, God of heaven's armies, the one who was, who is, and who is coming.
And whenever the living beings give glory, honor, and thanks to the one sitting on the throne, the one who lives forever and ever, the 24 elders fall down before the one sitting on the throne, the one who lives forever and ever. And they worship him, and they throw their crowns in front of the throne as they say,
You are worthy, Adonai Eloheinu, to have glory, honor, and power, because you created all things. Yes, because of your will they were created and came into being.
You may recognize some of that scene, not only from the passage of Scripture from which it ultimately derives, but also from paragraph 3 of the Amidah, which is why our Amidah portions this evening are paragraphs 1 through 3. So please rise, joining us on pages 66 to 71, facing Jerusalem, the direction of the ark, as we use these words as our continued response of praise and gratitude and worship to our great God, the one who will in fact bring a Redeemer to their children, at which time he will raise the dead. Anticipating, therefore, the very same things we have anticipated, the re-arrival of the Messiah. Utilize these words now as your response. Mikamoka, Ba'al Givurot. Who is like you, Lord of might? Who can be compared to you, O King? Which is why we sanctify your name in the world, as they sanctify it in the highest heavens. As it is written by your prophet, they call out to each other, and they say,
Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. All the earth is full of his splendor. Kadosh, 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 Adonai tzvot melech kol haaretz kvodo.
Then across from them comes back this resounding response.
Praise, praise be the splendor of the Lord everywhere is manifested. Baruch kavod Adonai min kamo.
And then in the holy writings we are further told,
The Lord shall reign forever, your God, O Zion, for all generations. Yimloch Adonai le'olam, Elohai Zion ledor vador. Hallelujah.
so in every generation we will tell your greatness, and in every age we will proclaim your holiness. Your praise will certainly never depart from our lips, for you are a great and holy God and King. Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh. Blessed are you, O Lord, you are the holy God. If we reflect on what we have just been responding with through the course of this part of our service, we will certainly then come back with the response found on pages 88 and 89. Ein kamoka. Truly, there is none like you, O Lord, among the gods.
Im kamocha Elohim Adonai, v'en kamasecha, malchut kamalchut cholamim, umemshalcha v'chodor vador, v'chodor vador. Adonai Melech, Adonai Malach, Adonai Malach Leolam Vayed, Adonai Malach Leamul Yitzim, Adonai Yivarek et Amo L'Shalom. There is none like you among the gods, my Lord, and there is nothing that compares to your deeds. Your kingdom is a kingdom that endures for all eternity, and your sovereignty extends throughout all generations. The Lord reigns, the Lord has reigned, the Lord shall reign throughout eternity. The Lord will bless his people with peace.
He will in fact bless his people with peace, especially so when, as we responded, his sovereignty will extend throughout all generations. By even so looks forward to that time as well, because it'll be at that time that from Zion will go forth the Torah and the word of the Lord out of Jerusalem. That's now our response, pages 88 and 89.
Shema pages
Sorry.
34 through 39.
Thank you for catching that. I got stuck on pages 88 and 89. First, before that happens, through the world, it needs to happen in our lives. That's the purpose of the Shema. That's why we pay the cantors such big bucks.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem, Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Vayed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, Bechol לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אלוהים צרף היום על לבביך, ושינתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשבתך ובפומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך, ובישעריך. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. Blessed be he whose glorious kingdom is eternal. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your life, and with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as reminders on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates.
This reality which we've affirmed for our lives, as I suggested before, will be the reality that will be in place throughout the entire world, as Vayehi Ben So reminds us and anticipates on pages 88 and 89.
Vayehi Ben So Aaron. I'm sorry, my wrong one. Sorry, I'm doing the right one. Okay. Vayehi Ben So Aaron, Vayomer Moshe, Kuma Adonai Vayafutzu Ivacha, Vayadusu, Mesanecha, Mipanecha, Ki Mitzion Teitzei Torah, Ki Mitzion Teitzei Torah, Udavar Adonai Yerushalayim, Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah, Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah, Le'amo Yisrael B'kedushato. And it came to pass, whenever the ark went forward, Moses would say, Arise, O Lord, and let your enemies be scattered. May those who hate you flee from before you. For from Zion shall go forth the Torah, and the word of the Lord out of Jerusalem. Blessed be he who in holiness gave the Torah to his people, Israel.
He gave to his people Israel and those who joined with us this tremendous gift, a treasure, to which we now respond on page 133, as well as the insert to the bulletin.
The ark now unveils its treasure to our eyes and minds and hearts. Inside the scroll of Torah stands.
It stands there with all its richness and wisdom.
As we listen, voices speak, voices of our ancestors.
Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Joseph, and Moses.
O God, they bring us your instructions for us.
Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, and Miriam speak to us as well.
O God, they move us to respond to your promises to us.
We are grateful for your words, the words of Torah.
Hear, O Israel, the Lord calls.
We will hear your words that we may learn them, love them, live them.
What does the Lord require of you? To fear him, love him, serve him, and walk in all of his ways.
All the Lord has said, we will do.
The Torah of the Lord is perfect, restoring the soul. The teaching of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple.
The precepts of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes.
Happy is the one who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of the scornful.
But our delight is in the Torah of the Lord, and in his Torah we will meditate day and night.
We shall be like a tree planted by streams of waters, that brings forth its fruit in its season.
And whose leaf does not wither, and in whatever we do, we shall prosper.
That the righteous requirements of Torah might be fully met in us, who do not live according to our evil inclinations, but according to the Ruach Hashem.
The day will come when my Torah will flow from Zion, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem.
Mi shabarach avotenu, Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Carrie, may he bless Sharon, may he bless Rabbi John, and may he bless Don, who have come out to honor God in the Torah. May the Holy One bless them and their families and send blessing and prosperity in all the work of their hands. Baruch et Adonai HaMavorach, Baruch Adonai HaMavorach le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'avim, v'natan lanu et torato, Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah. Bless the Lord who is blessed. Bless the Lord who is blessed forever and ever. Blessed are you, O Lord, our God, ruler of the universe, who chose us from all peoples and gave to us the Torah. Blessed are you, O Lord, giver of the Torah.
He gave the Torah to all of us, so all of us get to read it together. If you'll go to the the first inside page of your bulletin, you can follow along. Please follow along as I, in fact, chant the text. Here we go. Ve'elah Mishpatim asher tashim lifnehem ki tiknei avod every shesh shanim vayavad uvashvi'it yetzei lahafshi hinam. You may be seated. And these are the rulings which you are to place before them. If you purchase a Hebrew servant, 6 years will he serve you, but in the 7th year he will go out, or actually in this case in context, go free, for free. And the rest of those rulings are then unwrapped for us. This is a continuation of the text that we looked at last week's parashah. This is all part of the package which God delivered to our people through the hands of Moses in days of old.
Reading Exodus 24, 4 through 12, and 15 through 17. Moses wrote down all the words of Adonai. He rose early in the morning, built an altar at the base of the mountain, and set upright 12 large stones to represent the 12 tribes of Israel. He sent the young men of the people of Israel to offer burnt offerings and sacrifice peace offerings of oxen to Adonai. Moses took half of the blood and put it in basins. The other half of the blood he splashed against the altar. Then he took the book of the covenant and read it aloud, so that the people could hear, and they responded, "Everything that Adonai has spoken, we will do and obey." Moses took the blood, sprinkled it on the people, and said, "This is the blood of the covenant which Adonai has made with you in accordance with all these words." Moses, Aaron, Nadab, Abiahu, and 70 of the leaders went up, and they saw the God of Israel. Under his feet was something like a sapphire stone pavement, as clear as the sky itself. He did not reach out his hand against these notables of Israel. On the contrary, they saw God even as they were eating and drinking. Adonai said to Moshe, "Come up to me on the mountain and stay there." Moses went up onto the mountain, and the cloud covered the mountain. the glory of Adonai stayed on Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it for 6 days. On the 7th day he called Moses out of the cloud. To the people of Israel, the glory of Adonai looked like a raging fire on the top of the mountain.
An amazing text. More amazing if I got that on. There we go. An amazing text to recognize some of the things there. It carries forward some of the themes from last week again. God on the mountain. The people of Israel seeing and experiencing that. Oh yes, and in that interesting phrase, this is the blood of the covenant, which Yeshua, of course, quoted at that last Seder.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher natan lanu Torah et emet v'kayonam netabatochenu Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah.
Amen.
Blessed are you, O Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who gave us the Torah of truth and life everlasting planted in our midst. Blessed are you, O Lord, giver of the Torah.
He gave us the Torah. He gave it to our ancestors, but he also gave it to us. And because he gave it to us, we now acknowledge it as we stand before him in his presence, as our ancestors did, and acknowledge the Zod HaTorah. These are the words of the Torah which you gave to us through the hand of Moses. Pages 98 and 99, if you need the transliteration, that's page 95.
Eitz Chaim Machazikim. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. Yikes, I'm off today. Vezot HaTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai Beyad Moshe. This is the Torah which Moses placed before the children of Israel. It is in accord with the Lord's command by the hand of Moses.
You may be seated.
I'm going to be reading from Exodus 19, 3 through 8, and 16 through 20. Moses went up to God, and Adonai called to him from the mountain. Here is what you are to say to the household of Jacob, to tell the people of Israel, you have seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now, if you will pay careful attention to what I say and keep my covenant, then you will be my own treasure from among all peoples. For all the earth is mine, and you will be a kingdom of priests for me, a nation set apart. These are the words you are to speak to the people of Israel. Moshe came, summoned the leaders of the people, and presented them with all these words which Adonai had ordered him to say. All the people answered as one, everything Adonai has said we will do. Moses reported the words of the people to Adonai. On the morning of the 3rd day there was thunder, lightning, and a thick cloud on the mountain. Then a shofar blast sounded so loudly that all the people in the camp trembled. Moses brought the people out of the camp to meet God. They stood near the base of the mountain Mount Sinai was enveloped in smoke because Adonai descended onto it in fire. Its smoke went up like the smoke from a furnace, and the whole mountain shook violently. As the sound of the shofar grew louder and louder, Moses spoke, and God answered him with a voice. Adonai came down on Mount Sinai to the top of the mountain. Then Adonai called Moses to the top of the mountain, and Moses went up.
You know, when God spoke, the people heard. They understood that God was speaking. And you can bet it affected their lives. It impacted them. That's the effect it should have in our lives as well. It should impact us. And we remind ourselves of that when we respond with Shekalim, the tree of life. Pages 96 and 97. And if we understand it correctly, then we can wholeheartedly ask Him to renew our days as of old.
Etz Chaim hi lemachazim ba v'tom keha meushad derachea darchei noam v'chol nativoteha shalom. Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva Chadesh amenu chadesh yameinu kekedem Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva Chadesh amenu chadesh yameinu kekedem. A tree of life it is to those who take hold of it, and happy are those who support it. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are peace. Turn us, Lord, to you, and let us return. Renew our days as of old.
If in fact our days have been renewed as of old, we're better equipped, better prepared to stand before Him in His presence as His priests, which we are reminded that we do when we turn to Uflucho Yomar, pages 98 and 99.
Uvnocho Yomar, Shuva, Adonai Revavot Alfei Yisrael. When the ark rested, Moses would say, Return, O Lord, to the myriads of Israel's families. Arise, O Lord, to your resting place, you and your mighty ark. Clothe your priests with righteousness. May those who have experienced your faithful love shout for joy. For the sake of your servant David, don't delay the return of your Messiah. Ba'avor David Abdecha, al teshev b'nei meshichecha. I give you good instruction. Do not forsake my Torah.
Why we greet one another up here, please use that as a signal and encouragement to greet those around you.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Okay, enough with all the fun and games. Well, the games part, we'll still have fun in this next section. Shabbat school is excused.
Well, nice to meet you, Miss Lisa. I love your puppy, that's the weather. Go have fun.
Blackness was everywhere. It was the kind of absolute darkness that felt like complete emptiness. It felt like the total absence of everything and anything. And it was just that. It was emptiness. It was nothingness. It was blackness. It was darkness. Or as Genesis chapter 1 describes it, tohu vavohu, a complete void. But then suddenly there came an explosion of sound, a burst of light, and everything was happening all at once. In the tiniest slice of a fraction of a microsecond, 12 or more dimensions collapsed into the 4 we know of today. Energy and matter were shooting everywhere at an unimaginable speed. God had spoken, and creation was taking place. Well, that's part one of the grand story we all get to participate in. And when we do the Shabbat blessings from time to time, on pages 34 and 35, it's reflected there. Well, part two of this amazing tale is found not in our parsha tonight, but from last week. And I warned you last week I'm running about one week behind, and if I'm only 1 week behind, I'm doing well. But it's also continued in one sense in the parsha tonight. And that part two is almost as astounding as part one, if not more so. The story reads in Exodus 19, "On the morning of the third day, there were terrific claps of thunder and constant bursts of lightning, and a huge cloud came down upon the mountain, and there was a long, loud blast as from a shofar, and all the people trembled. Moses led them out from the camp to meet God." Please understand that's exactly what took place. And they stood at the foot of the mountain, which is why we stand when we receive it yet again. All Mount Sinai was covered with smoke because the Lord descended upon it in the form of fire. Quick aside, if you hadn't picked up on it, cloud and fire. Does that sound familiar? It's part of the story of the whole of the Exodus and the walk with God through the wilderness. Anyhow, where was I? Fire. The smoke billowed into the sky as from a furnace, and the whole mountain shook with a violent earthquake. As the shofar blast grew louder and louder, Moses spoke, and God thundered his reply. So the Lord came down on the top of Mount Sinai, and all the people saw the lightning and the smoke billowing from that mountain, and they heard the thunder and the long, frightening shofar blast, and they stood at a distance, shaking with fear. The God of creation had paid a visit to his creatures and actually spoke to them. Our response should be, wow, what a day. And in case that's not our response, Moses in Deuteronomy chapter 4, beginning at verse 32, reminds us of the amazingness of this event. He says, "Ask now about the former days, long before your time, from the day God created humans on the earth. Ask from one end of the heavens to the other, has anything so great as this ever happened? Or has anything like it ever been heard of? Has any other people heard the voice of the Lord speaking out of the fire as you have and lived?" Has any God ever tried to take for himself one nation out of another nation by miraculous signs and wonders, by a mighty hand, or by great and awesome deeds, like all the things the Lord your God did for you in Egypt before your very eyes? So, last week we read about that amazing experience of the giving of the Torah. But besides being the basis of the Jewish faith, it is, as the text indicates, an event unparalleled in all of history. In fact, no one ever so much as dared to invent such a story. Not any of the world's religions. God, the creator of all, actually appeared and literally spoke to millions of Jews. And he defined for the first time in history what he wants from the world. Interestingly enough, according to Jewish tradition, before he gave the Torah, certain things happened. The rabbis tell us he cured all that were present from their ailments. The blind saw and the deaf heard. And as Rashi reminds us, then he caused everyone to see what is usually heard and to hear what is usually seen. And finally, as the Talmud says, when he actually gave the Torah, listen, this is interesting. Everyone died and God brought them back to life. Now look, at first glance, this may make no sense. I mean, after all, what do these three miracles have to do with the giving of the Torah? Well, let me suggest that they are precursors and pictures of some texts in Isaiah, chapter 2 and in chapter 11. And these are texts with which you are familiar, so I will remind you of them. Isaiah chapter 2, verses 2 and 3. The nations of the world will say, "Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord and worship the God of Jacob." And then you know what the response is. For the law will go forth from Jerusalem, the word of the Lord from Mount Zion. And at that time, Isaiah 11 tells us as it begins the chapter, a shoot will grow up or come up from the stump of Jesse. From his roots, a branch will bear fruit. Branch, a messianic title. Later on in that chapter, it says, in that day, the root of Jesse. Root of Jesse? Please remember Lechadadi. What is verse 4? Jesse's son, or root, comes. Jesse's son, the Bethlehemite, comes. Anyhow, the text says, the root of Jesse will stand as a banner for the peoples. The nations will rally to him and will reside in his splendor. They will neither harm nor destroy on all my holy mountains. Again, that's seen on the top of the mountain. There, his holy mountain, by the way, please remember in context, is Jerusalem, hence Mount Zion. For the earth will be full of the knowledge of the Lord. Doesn't that sound like Isaiah 2, 2 and 3? The word of the Lord will come forth from the mountain. Okay. So no wonder Yeshua said in answering JB. Who's JB? One might ask. John the Baptist. Okay, just in case you were wondering. He said, Matthew chapter 11, verse 5, the blind receive sight, the lame walk, those who have ailments are cured, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the good news, God's word, is preached to the poor. That's Isaiah 35, 4 and 6, 61, 1. Plus an addition that comes from one of the Dead Sea Scrolls, which adds to those prophetic passages the phrase, the dead are raised. And in the fragment of that scroll where that is found, it occurs as part of an extensive messianic discussion. So what are these things as you see the connections to those texts? Let me suggest that they are a pointer to and precursor of the Messianic age. And we reflect that as well with Vayhi ben Soa, which is in fact Isaiah 2, 3 and 4. The God of the universe, in other words, has drawn back the curtains of time and of eternity, and he had literally revealed himself to his people. Now look, if we think about it, if we reflect on it, the concept of revelation is an important religious idea. However, and we'll talk about some of this in the apologetics class on Thursday nights. And yes, that was a blatant commercial. Revelation. Revelation, and I don't mean the book, Revelation could in fact be the most important religious idea. It's more important, for example, than the belief in God. You might say, whoa, what? Well, think about it for a second. You see, if God exists, but he does not concern himself with the world, what difference does it make at all if he exists? If God created the universe but was too busy out there in space to communicate to and to be concerned with humans, with us, if he has nothing to say, if he has no standards to set, no expectations to convey, then what possible function does such a God serve? Really serve? If he's not interested in us, why should we be interested in him? Well, the Jewish story convincingly answers, he is interested, and he gets involved, and he does communicate. He is interested. He let us know that at the burning bush through Moses. He gets involved. When Moses came back for the follow-up interview for his job, Exodus 6, God indicated he's going to get involved, and boy, does he communicate. That's the text from last week and this week, Exodus 20. And then just what does he communicate to his creation? Now look, I understand fully that often these instructions are treated as the 10 recommendations, or the 10 suggestions, or even the 10 menu selections. You know, as if you were a buffet. Okay, anyhow, you get it. So then, are they little more than nice-sounding sayings? Nice-sounding sayings such as, if at first you don't succeed, you must destroy all the evidence that you even tried. Or, experience is something you don't get until just after you need it. Here's one. Never do card tricks for the group that you play poker with. And I'm sure all of us have experienced this at one time or other. The colder the x-ray table, the more of your body that's required to be on it. Now I'm going to stop there. I know that's not 10, that's only 4, but trust me, I've got at least half a dozen more, but I'll save you the trouble of having to listen to them. No, these instructions at Sinai are quite different. In fact, they are the very words of God himself. That's why we say V'zot HaTorah, as we recognize that. And because they are that, then please understand that means they are the 10 great freedoms. Now, too often people don't understand that, and they might say, well, what do you mean 10 great freedoms? Well, you see, the Mosaic Covenant did not follow the pattern of Hammurabi's law code. Instead, it followed the pattern of the ancient Hittite covenants and treaties. And there are some stark contrasts between the two. But I don't have the time to get into those contrasts. I do have the time to issue another commercial. We deal with them in several of the classes. The bottom line is this. If this is a law code that we're dealing with, then the bottom line is you've got to do these things. But if it's a covenant or treaty that we're dealing with, then the bottom line is you get to do these things. One interesting vowel shift that often happens in the Hebrew to change things. But that tells it all. You don't, it's not a got to, it's a get to kind of issue. The rabbis, in their own inimitable fashion, have described it this way. You're a son if you obey, you're a slave if you don't. Let me translate that for you in case you are unfamiliar with rabbinic thinking. That means you're a son if you want to, you're a slave if you have to. That means that we are not enslaved, but we are in fact enriched. And please note something else about a later commentator on this text. It's Yeshua's brother, James chapter 1, verse 25, where he talks about this material, and he describes it, depending on your translation, as the royal law of liberty or the perfect law of freedom. Catch that? Liberty, freedom, the whole package. And in fact, the very first words that are found among these 10 words, Exodus chapter 20, verse 2, reinforces then the nature of just this relationship. When the text says, or God says, because he's speaking, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. In other words, they are words of liberty. Furthermore, in Exodus 32:16, Moses is described much later as coming down from Mount Sinai as bearing the tablets of the law. The text there says, the tablets were God's creation, the writing God's autograph, incised, Hebrew term here, charut, incised upon or inscribed upon the tablets. Now in the Middle Ages, our rabbis, I don't know if this is a verb form properly, punned on this verse. Pun sounds like it ought to be a verb form, but anyhow. And they suggested, and I quote, read not incised, charut, but rather as though it says freedom, cherut. And then quoting Pirkei Avot, they say, for no person is free unless they are involved in the study of the Torah. End quote. By playfully suggesting the change of one vowel of the Hebrew, charut, to cherut, the rabbis explained that the essence of freedom paradoxically lies in the rule of law. Moreover, it is, as Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 12 describes it, habrit hachesed, a covenant of love. What that means then is the Sefer Torah is our ketubah, our wedding contract. And this is further reflected on in the words of the prophets. Hosea chapter 2. Please remember that Hosea is speaking to the northern kingdom, Israel, that has really gone astray from God. And to them, God says, and we reflect on this every time we lay tefillin, we quote the text. Old English. I have betrothed you unto me forever. I have betrothed you unto me in faithfulness and love. And then he adds a few more adjectives there, or nouns there as well. Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 2. You know this by now because I quote it so often. Like a bride, you followed me out into the wilderness, he says to Israel. Or Isaiah 54 and verse 5. Your husband is your maker or your creator. And what should our response be? Well, we responded through the reader. Exodus 19:8. I do. All the Lord has said, I will do. No wonder the Sephardi and North African traditions concerning Shavuot, the holiday that, of course, celebrates this giving of the Torah, view this as a time in which, this being Shavuot, as a time in which we can renew our vows before God. And we utilize those traditions when we celebrate Shavuot here at the synagogue. And what should our response be? It's fairly simple. You already responded this way. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your life, with all your strength. Therefore, as the Chumash points out, and I quote now from one of the standard versions of the Chumash, amid thunder and lightning and the sounding of the shofar, amid flames of fire that enveloped the smoking mountain, a majestic voice pronounced the words which, from that day to this, have been the guide of conduct to humankind. That revelation was the most remarkable event in the history of humanity. Here it goes. It was the birth hour of the religion of the Spirit, which was destined in time to illumine and order the lives of all. End quote. And this is what our Parsha tonight, as well as the one we're reflecting on, the Parsha from last week, is all about. But it's interesting, if you look at last week's readings, there's some interesting Haftarah portions as well. The Parsha, as already suggested, includes Exodus 19 and 20, where we have what? The 10 words, as the text says, literally. Yet the Haftarah is in two parts. Part 1, Isaiah chapter 6, verse 1 to Isaiah chapter 7, verse 6. And it's in those very texts that we have Isaiah's experience of that amazing, astounding encounter with the glory of the Lord. You encountered it already twice in the Revelation text, the Tehillah HaBrikhanashah, and in fact in the Amidah, section 3. The astounding glory of God, like our people encountered it in Exodus 19. And there's a second part, which is most intriguing. It's Isaiah chapter 9, verses 6 and 7. In English, in many English versions, it's verses 6 and 7. So Isaiah 9, 5 or 6, in some translations, 6 and 7 in the other. Unto us a child is born. Unto us a son is given. And the government will be on his shoulders. And these are the titles that are his. Pele, they're pairs. Some translations separate the pairs. Pele, Yoetz. El Gabor, Aviad, Sar Shalom. The titles he has are Counselor of Wonders, God of Might, Father of Eternity, Prince of Peace. And then it talks about the things that will happen in those days when he will reign on the throne of David forever. And the Lord himself will do this. The Lord himself will do this. God once again present among his people. Small wonder then, Yochanan could say in his first chapter, John chapter 1 verse 14, he could speak of Yeshua as the Word, Memra. He could speak of Yeshua as the glory, Yakar. And he could also speak of him as Shekinah, the actual presence of God among his people. You remember the messianic pictures accompanying the giving of the Torah that the rabbis understood took place? Remember, he cured all those present from their ailments. The blind saw and the deaf heard. Then he caused everyone to see what is usually heard and to hear what is usually seen. In other words, he unwrapped to a deeper extent what these texts mean. Sort of sounds like the Sermon on the Mount. I've come not to set aside, but to fill full of meaning the Torah and the prophets. And then he did exactly that as he unwrapped those words in chapters 5, 6, and 7. So much so that at the end of chapter 7, the end of the Sermon on the Mount, the people say, wow, no one has spoken with such clarity and authority as this. And then the third thing, remember, that took place, when he came and people died, he brought them back to life. In other words, these are reminiscent of the messianic miracles that Yeshua did. It's an indicator that the messianic age had in fact dawned. All this is very interesting, hopefully, and enlightening, even more hopefully. But our response is the Yiddish response, nu. So? Well, 3 suggestions here. Suggestion 1. The text as they indicated it for us had Moses in the mountain and the people at the foot of the mountain. So as we now understand it, perhaps, Yeshua bridges the distance between the people and their God. In other words, not that they were distant, but he brings the Word even nearer because he is the Word, the Memra. He's also Yakar, the glory of God, the Shekinah, the presence of God. So second, where does that leave us? Well, when these instructions were given to us, Exodus chapter 19, verses 5 and 6, God said, you will be to me a holy nation, a special nation, a kingdom of priests. Well, that's great. Thanks a lot for dumping that on our shoulders. How do we do that? Deuteronomy chapter 4, verses 5 to 8. God says, if you follow these guidelines and instructions, the nations of the world will look at you and say, wow, what a wise and understanding people this is, that has a God so near to them that he answers prayer, or has guidelines so wonderful as these. That's part 2 and our role. Okay, well, thanks God even for that. How do we pull this off? That's part 3, the enablement. That has to do with, as Yeshua put it, Acts chapter 1, verse 8. The Spirit of God will come upon you. The Ruach Hashem will come upon you. And he will give you power. He will come upon you in a special way. And he will give you power. That's nothing new. That's exactly what the prophet Ezekiel had said concerning the covenant when it would be renewed by the Messiah. God said, I will place my Spirit in you and cause you to walk according to all of my guidelines and instructions. And that's what he does for us. Oh, and again, remember, that's not new. Now, having experienced the first great moment of liberation by reaching the other shore of the Red Sea, the Israelites now live through a second amazing transformative event, the divine revelation at Sinai. Well, not at Sinai, because that sounds like the desert. On Sinai, the mountain. physical transition, leaving the land. Sinai then symbolizes an internal metamorphosis, propelling the young nation from the mentality of slavery to a mindset of liberty. But please understand, it's meant to be a loyal liberty, because as we are reminded, we pass directly from the slavery of Egypt to the service of God. Oh, a rabbi of old also reflected on that. Romans chapter 6, verses 17 and 18. It says, why we were at one time slaves to sin, now we've become servants to righteousness. In other words, servants or people who serve God by living those kinds of lives. You see, Revelation was not simply an event experienced by the generation that left Egypt. It calls out to us to be renewed every day. Renew our days as of old, we said. The Torah is not only the sacred scroll that we hold fast to, but it's also the ketubah and the underlying purpose for the way in which we are to live our lives and to teach our children. It's how we show our love to and for God. It was read for us, Exodus 19:8. God read it for us on our behalf as if we were all reading it. All the Lord has said, we will do, we said. Whereas Yeshua reminded us, he or she who loves me will obey my guidelines. And one final reminder from the rabbi. Those who walk, Romans 8, verse 4, those who walk by the Spirit, here's how we know they were walking by the Spirit, will fulfill the righteous requirements of the Torah. And if that's what takes place in our lives, then we too can respond, wow, what a day that was. But each day we can say, wow, what a day we get to live. Take the next minute or so for a time of reflection and quiet, please. Our response continues as we rise, facing Jerusalem yet again, and respond on pages 102 to 107 with the words of the Elenu. As part of that response, we not only anticipate the time when, in fact, the Torah will go forth from Jerusalem, and so the world will be perfected under the rule of the Lord Almighty, we also remind ourselves that our calling is our task. So we take on that calling, part of which is Exodus 19, verses 5 and 6. A holy nation, a kingdom of priests. And we respond on pages 102 to 107.
עלינו לשבח האדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי ארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו כחלומם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוצר הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו לגבי מרומים. הוא אלוהינו, אין עוד Rakenu efesulato kagatu batorato vayadata hayom vahashevota Elevavecha ki Adonai hua Elohim bashamayim ima'ah ve'al ha'aretz v'takat Eno. It is incumbent upon us to praise the Master of all, to exalt the Creator of the world, for He has made us distinct from the nations, unique among the families of the earth. Our destiny is not like theirs, our calling is our task. We bow down with knowledge before the King of Kings that there is none like Him. For You stretch forth the heavens like a tent and establish the earth. Truly there is none like our Lord and King. As the Torah says, you shall know this day and reflect in your heart that it is the Lord who is God in the heavens above, and on the earth beneath there is none else. We hope, O Lord our God, to soon behold your majestic glory, when all abominations shall be removed, and all false gods shall be ended. Then shall the word give effective unto the rule of the Lord Almighty, and all mankind shall call upon your name. For to You every knee must bow, and every tongue declare that You are God. Reign over us soon and forever. May the kingdom of David's great Son be established forever. For then shall the words be fulfilled. The Lord shall be king forever, and the Lord shall be king over all the earth. On that day the Lord shall be one, and His name one. Amar V'haya Adonai L'melech al kol haaretz Bayom hahu Yihye Adonai echad Ushmo echad.
You may be seated. Now, as you look around, you'll see that none of the usual suspects are here to lead this part of the service.